Imagine, it's the 1950s. The war is over, families are flocking to the suburbs, and the American dream is in full swing. At the heart of this picture-perfect world is the American housewife. She's the anchor of the family, expected to keep a spotless home, raise perfect children, support her husband's career, and always look effortlessly beautiful and composed. But what happens when the pressure of that perfection becomes too much to bear? What happens when behind the cheerful smile, there's a quiet desperation, a relentless anxiety that has no name and no acceptable outlet? In the mid-1950s, a tiny white pill arrived, promising a solution. Its name was Milltown, and it was marketed as a revolutionary new tranquilizer. For millions of women, it was a chemical answer to an invisible burden. It was sold as a safe, modern, and scientific way to smooth out the rough edges of a stressful day. Feeling overwhelmed by the kids and the housework, anxious about a dinner party, Milltown was there to help you stay calm, pleasant, and in control. It wasn't just a medication. It was peace in a pill. Doctors, who were mostly men at the time, prescribed it enthusiastically. They were bombarded with advertising from pharmaceutical companies portraying Milltown as virtually harmless and non-addictive. The target audience was clear: the nervous housewife. The message was simple: if you're struggling, it's not society's expectations that are the problems, and this pill can fix you. Within just a few years, Milltown became a cultural sensation. At its peak, it was outselling penicillin. It popped up in magazine articles, movies, and even comedy routines. Taking a tranquilizer became not just normal, but almost fashionable. It was a sign that you were a modern woman, using science to manage the demands of life. This cultural acceptance reinforced a dangerous idea. Instead of questioning the rigid social structures that confined them, women were encouraged to turn to a quiet, chemical solution. But what was Milltown really doing? The drug, meprobamate, works on the central nervous system, much like barbiturates. It creates a relaxing, sedative effect that feels like a wave of calm washing over you. But that feeling of relief can quickly become a trap. Milltown was both psychologically and physically addictive, especially for those using it every day to cope with chronic stress. Think about the daily routine. A woman might take a pill in the morning to face the day's chores, another in the afternoon to get through the pre-dinner chaos, and maybe one more at night to quiet the racing thoughts that kept her awake. It wasn't seen as a last resort medication. It became an emotional maintenance tool, something essential just to get by. The line between use and dependence became blurry. Because society framed emotional struggle as a personal failing, many women felt deep shame about their reliance on the drug. They couldn't talk about it. Addiction was something associated with back alleys and illicit substances, not with respectable suburban mothers. As their tolerance grew, they needed higher and higher doses to get the same calming effect. If they tried to stop, they faced brutal withdrawal symptoms, intense anxiety, insomnia, irritability, and trembling. These symptoms often felt like proof that they couldn't function without the pill, pulling them deeper into the cycle of dependence. Pharmaceutical companies, meanwhile, were making a fortune. Their advertising was brilliant and insidious. It framed emotional calmness as a woman's domestic duty. A tranquil mother meant a happy home. Taking Milltown wasn't just about feeling better. It was about fulfilling your role as a good wife and mother. It was about smoothing yourself into the perfect shape that your family and your community demanded. The rise of Milltown fundamentally changed how Americans thought about mental health. It opened the door to the idea that emotional distress could be treated with medication. But it also set a deeply troubling precedent. Instead of addressing the systemic pressures that were crushing women, the solution was to medicate them into quiet submission. Their pain wasn't resolved. It was just made invisible. By the late 1950s, some doctors and public health experts started raising alarms about overprescription and addiction, but their warnings were drowned out by the drug's immense profitability and its deep roots in American culture. The decline of Milltown had less to do with a public awakening to its dangers and more to do with pharmaceutical competition. Soon, a new drug called Valium would arrive, marketed with the very same tactics to the very same women. The story of Milltown is more than just a history of a drug. It's a story about the intersection of medicine, marketing, and gender. It reveals how easily a medication can become tangled up with cultural ideals, and how the medical establishment can reinforce social pressures instead of relieving them. Behind every drug trend, there's a social need and a cultural narrative. For the housewives of the 1950s, that need was born from isolation, economic dependence, and the suffocating pressure to perform a flawless version of femininity. Milltown offered temporary relief, but it came at the cost of long-term dependence and emotional suppression. It was a missed opportunity for society to listen, to understand, and to address the real sources of their distress. The drug stands as a powerful cautionary tale. It shows how a pill designed to treat anxiety became a symbol of a much larger emotional crisis, one rooted not in individual weakness, but in the unseen burdens carried by millions of women who were expected to maintain the illusion of effortless happiness. Today, we can look back and see the full picture. The story of Milltown resonates because the core pressures haven't entirely disappeared. The expectation to perform emotional stability, to hide our struggles, and to manage unrealistic demands still exists, just in different forms. The history of tranquilizers is also the history of the people that were meant to soothe and whose voices for far too long went unheard. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of history. We'll see you next time.